Dr. Miller, are you ready? We ready to start the work session here? Yep.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our work session. This meeting is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There may be time for public participation as indicated by agenda item or as directed by the president. Meeting site's fully accessible. Any person requiring further accommodation should contact the superintendent at the school corporation central office. The meeting will be electronically recorded and will be kept on file in the superintendent's office. A copy of the audio recording will also be available on the NLCS website. So we will begin our work session. Of note is that all members are here except for Adam Parsley, and Justin Soakland is joining us virtually.
Ready? Thank you, Dr. Miller. I want to thank Dr. Gabriel for being here to help us with understanding the status of the operations fund. So we'll just go ahead and on the two screens. We'll start with the agenda. Dr. Gabriel.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Yancey and I are going to be sharing this presentation this evening. So the agenda for the evening for this presentation is, first we're going to be talking about some background information, then get involved with some of the legislative changes that have been recently passed that will start impacting us in 2026. Spend a little time talking about what actually makes up the operations fund, and then Dr. Yancey will talk a little bit about future activities. Go ahead with the next slide. So just some background information, and I know that board members who've been around a while know this stuff, but we just wanted to kind of review that. To just talk a little bit about what we're discussing. When the board approves a budget, you typically approve these three funds. The education fund, which is really designed around instructional expenses, things like teachers and principals and aides and other instructional costs. The operations fund, which is really about operational expenses, including things like the central office, our utilities, our insurance, and our support departments like transportation and maintenance and custodial and so forth. And then the debt service fund, which pays for the interest and principal on our long-term debt. And you see there the budgets that were approved by the board, kind of rounded into round numbers, and that accounts for about $53 million. Altogether, we have about 70 active funds. So there are a lot of other things that you don't see at the budget hearing. Those are primarily things like grants, a lot of state grants, things like Title I and Title II and special ed and lots of other things that make up those 70 funds. And just to give you a perspective, in 2024, our total expenses for the year were about $71 million. Next, please. So just a timeline for the budget. Why are we talking about 2026 right now? Well, it's really that time. It's the Department of Local Government Finance that really controls this process and determines the schedule when things have to be approved. Budget for the Education and Operations and Debt Service Fund need to be approved by the board at a meeting in October. So that's kind of the end of getting the budget approved. And so in order to do that, we have to have a hearing in advance. And so at the September meeting, we'll have our hearing on the budget. It's at the September board meeting. And so in order to get ready for that, these budgets need to be relatively final and ready to discuss in August so that we can begin the process of answering questions and preparing for collective bargaining. So from the standpoint of the business office, we really feel like we've got less than 60 days to get the budget prepared for 2026. Next, please. Yeah. Okay, and this is Kevin.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. next slide shows the enrollment data and projections. As we know, North Lawrence Community Schools has had a decrease in enrollment over many years, and last year was the first time we had a balance where we were even, and we had a few students more, about 53 at the beginning. So, as you can see, it's been a deep decline. So then the next slide. So when we look at our existing schools, you'll see there the enrollment. So we have 3,500 students. Estimated seats of these buildings that are not filled, and then the estimated total seat capacity. So estimate about 1,500 seats not filled in these buildings. So what is the percentage of the building being used? You can see there through the building. We have some buildings that are close to 100%. We have some buildings that are not even close to capacity. Next slide is the legislative changes from 2026. This is taking a look at only at the operations fund. It is an unusual year because of these changes are so significant that we have not been given any specific guidelines by the IDOE of the property taxes. That's how it's going to be based. So change number one, based on property tax reform legislation, we can expect a decrease in property tax revenue through 2031. Change number two, beginning in 2028, part of the NLCS tax revenue will be transferred to charter schools, potentially all over the state of Indiana. Losses will get progressively worse for 4 years. So we have two changes here. We have, again, a decrease in the operations fund, and then we will be using some of our operations money, and starting in 2028, be given to the charter schools. The next slide is the physical impact of legislation changes. So when we look at next year, 2026, the maximum levy growth quotient is based on about 4% that's given to us by the state. We're probably with growth about $380,000 or $381,000. The property tax cut for Senate Bill 1 was $740,200. When you subtract that, the annual impact is $359,398. As you go to 27, and you can see the growth quotient there at $346,530. But with the property tax, we should have an increase of $15,380. So, why?
It's interesting.
Yes.
We don't know.
We got this off the state website, so that.
Yeah, there's a report that lists that figure, and I have talked with a number of other school districts and other people around the state that would typically know that answer, and their answer is, we don't know.
So
Is there a previous law that takes in effect that year or something?
No.
No, this is what the Legislative Services Agency at the state
Right.
predicts as the result of the 2025 enacted Senate Bill 1. So this is, it's not something.
So 27 is a good year.
Does Governor Braun know this?
So then 28, the impact, as you can see, of the loss, you have to add the charter schools in there because we have to give them $289,014. The annual impact of total from the tax is $509,442. As you go down to 29, you'll see the impact changes. I have to give more to the charter. So on 29, you'll see the impact to the schools, $841,059. In 2030, the impact gets really big, $1.2 million. In 31, looks like the impact to the school, and this is the operation, is 1.6. So it gives us a few years to come up with a strategy of how we're going to do this loss of revenue to the operations fund. we can't decide how they came up with this.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I mean,
So they don't release any formula or any, they just say these
No,
are the...
and that's very unusual that we can't go to
Right.
certain places.
Because even if you don't like it, you can usually see how they got
Yeah,
there.
right. We should be
Yes,
able to. There ought to be a formula that we could go to, and in the education fund, that's very common, and they tweak the formula every year, and they show us what it is, and so forth. But we've got very little to go on. One of the things that a number of people have said is the way in which the property tax reform legislation was enacted. In order to understand the impact, you have to take your school district and analyze every parcel individually. And that is starting to be done. There are some companies that would like to be more than happy to take our money to do that for us. But even those companies, as I've talked to them and other people have talked to them, cannot explain things like, why did it go up that little bit that one year and down so much the next? So it's going to be a difficult year to try to figure out how do we develop a budget, and we're going to have to really have some contingencies built into that. And that's why we're kind of starting to have this conversation.
Did other corporations have the increase in 2027?
Some do, but there's a variety. I mean, we can see the list for every corporation in the state, and it's all over the map. Some districts are worse off than others. I think as we've looked at it,
and some counties don't have charter schools.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
That's a huge impact to the district, having two charters in the,
Is that a percentage or a formula? Like how much they pay in the
That piece is
based on student
that's
population.
relatively easier to get a handle on. Although the exact calculations haven't been put out, there's some verbiage that's been put out that says the way the calculation is supposed to be done. And basically you take the number of residents in the district and the number of students you have that go to charter schools, and you take that as a percentage, and that's the percentage that you distribute, that the money that we collect is going to be transferred to charter schools.
And I had a question, for example, we transfer from the education fund to the operations fund 15%. That's about $4 million, correct, Dr. Gabriel?
Yeah.
Do I have to give that transfer money also to the charter school?
And it appears not,
Yeah,
based
we
on,
hope- yeah.
but we'll see as we get further into the process. But there's just a lot of unknowns. But it said we've got a period of just weeks to get our budget prepared, so we've got to start coming up with something.
How confident are you that these will be accurate, or do we not know?
Oh, I'm very confident that these, as I like to say to people, I can guarantee you these are wrong.
Okay.
In other
But how
words,
wrong?
now, are they
Yeah.
wrong by 1% or
Right.
30%?
I just pray it's in our favor.
Yeah, but these are just estimates. As we understand the process, if it follows the normal process, you saw us developing the budget in August and September and October. We may not know this answer until the end of the year, till December, late in December, when they actually send us an approved budget. So we're liable to be in limbo for quite a while, unless they change the process in some fashion. So, next. So one of the things we've would try to do is to just show you kind of the impact on the operations fund, and this just shows you our estimates from now until 2032 about what we expect to happen in the operations fund. Now, this is the revenue that we're projected to have, and we show it this way because this bill has an increasing effect through 2031. It is, say, the losses that we will suffer will increase through 2031, and then it stops getting worse, and we would hope it would start to get better after that. So that's why we show you the first year of 2032 in which it theoretically would start to get better. But, this is just what we're going to be doing, is kind of trying to track this as we look at these next few years, so we can be kind of always looking advance, not just next year, but what it looks like beyond that. So
So from 2025 to 2031, what's the average percent drop?
haven't computed that. You just kind of see the absolute numbers here. This is in total revenue. You can see this is about $1.4 million. That's the difference between 25 and 31. So, go ahead.
Next slide. We thought you need to know a little bit about the budget for the operations fund. So this is the 2025 budget. So you can see from custodial, transportation, administration, technology, utilities, building improvements, maintenance, and our insurance. The total is $13,231,000. The actual revenue we had was $13,171,000. So we're in a deficit. So you'll ask why we're in a deficit. That is because of the calculations in our fund over the last so many years has not been correct. So as Dr. Gabriel and Fatima have been cleaning these funds up, so now I have to watch this account very closely, and we're staying on track to stay out of the red. But for years, those funds were not correct, as we know. We've had those discussions in the past, and they've now got those funds pretty much cleaned up. So if we watch our spending, we'll stay within. We have to be under our budget because we only have so much revenue. So, because at the beginning I started my tenure here almost 2 years ago, this fund had quite a bit of money in it on paper, but in actuality, after the books were cleaned, it doesn't have the money in it it said it had. And that's why you've been giving us the luxury of hiring Dr. Gabriel and working with Fatima to clean our books up. So now we can say by August 1st, our funds will be cleaned up for the first time in many, 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 many years. So that we will know exactly what our funding is in each of these funds.
So I think that looking at that pie chart and giving some thought to where we could possibly make some reductions is going to be an important part of what we do, not just in the next 60 days, but really for the next few years as we deal with this, the impact of this new legislation. And we wanted to just show you a little bit about, so that chart had like 9 slices on it, what's inside each of those, so that, and I'm not going to talk about every one of these lines, but I just wanted to show you what this document looks like. It's something that we've spent a lot of time talking about where we might be able to make some cuts. So for example, custodial is one piece of the pie. And when you look at that, it contains 2 major categories of expenses. One is for the actual custodians, and the other is the supplies and equipment that goes with them. So that's a pretty simple one. The other ones, and you can just see the way these break down. Utilities, total of $1.4 million. You can see the categories that you would expect that we put in utilities: telephone, gas, trash, water, and electricity. Transportation is a little bit more difficult to categorize. You see all the different things: administration, bus drivers, monitors, vehicle maintenance, bus purchases, things like that. so those are the pieces of that budget. Building improvement is the generic term that the State Board of Accounts uses for what we used to call CPF projects. These are the various renovation projects and things like fixing a leaky roof or replacing a boiler that's got a problem, or things like that are smaller but added together. There's a great deal of need out there, and so that's what that category is. We've just shown it to you as a lump.
And you know what's interesting that I always enjoyed being director of operations for many years is take a look at the budget, $940,000. It will cost you $10 million to roof the roof at B&L, Bedford North Lawrence High School. So how in the world could you ever set up a budget with the state that would only give you $940,000 to fix these buildings? So that's why we have to lease and bond. So
Yeah.
we have absolutely zero money in this account to fix our buildings, if you think about it. That is zero money to fix these aging buildings. So, I mean, I do want to show you about transportation there. We have what's called contracted drivers. We have eliminated contracted drivers. So in the new budget, you won't see contracted drivers, but you will see the bus drivers go up slightly because we now own all the routes. You know that Dwayne has cut quite a few routes over my tenure, and that causes kids to be on the bus longer. Also, the board has allowed us to buy some buses, so we're not even at half of our fleet of our buses are relatively new. The rest are still very aged and outdated. So, and you can see bus purchase is $180. A new bus is a little about $153,000. So in that budget, you can buy one bus. It's almost obsolete. I mean, that's not even very little money that can do it. So.
The next slide, the administration category includes a variety of things. You see the school board, the superintendent's office, which includes all the people in that area, community relations, business office, personnel office, a small amount for corporation equipment and security, the expenses we have there. So that makes up the $1.7 million in administration. Insurance is the expense that we pay for our property and casualty insurance package every year on all of our buildings. That's got nothing to do with employee benefits. That's not health insurance or anything like that. That's just property and casualty insurance. In the technology area, you have the supervision of that department, and then you have the actual administrative hardware and software that we need to purchase. The vast majority of student and teacher technology qualifies as a instructional expense and is in the education fund, so that's not here. Yeah, as a general rule, it should not. Now, that's one of those accounting issues that we've had. We haven't always been accurate, but Fatima's watching this one like a hawk because it's a pretty easy one to say, okay, if you're buying this, who's it for? If it's for teachers and students, no, we're going to put that in the education fund to keep anything out of the operations fund that we can. So, and then the last category is the maintenance department, and that includes expenses for the building itself, as well as all of their staff. And then we talk about, we've got a category for grounds maintenance and for equipment maintenance and for vehicle maintenance. So all those together add up to that $2 million. I think this chart is a great way to kind of summarize where we end up with all of this. The top line is what we anticipate our expenses will be without making any radical cuts. In other words, it kind of assumes a normal process. Utilities are going to go up, cost of custodians is going to go up, cost of maintenance is going to go up, and supplies are going to go up, and insurance is going to go up. And so we've just made some generic assumptions, which primarily is based on a 4% increase. But when you compare that to where our revenue is going to go, it's not going up, it's going down. And you can, again, we've graphed this through 2032 because that shows the first year in which we would expect something to be a little bit better. But as you can see, our revenue is still a lot lower than it is today in 2025. So I think we've talked about this a lot, and basically we're talking about how can we bend that top curve, because that's what we've got control of is our expenses. There's not a lot we can do about the revenue. It will be whatever it is when they decide whatever that's going to be. So
This revenue is operations fund.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
well, this number does include that transportation, the transfer from education to operations. So that's the, yes, it does. Yeah, it does include. Well, it's not based on that going down, because you have two things going into play. If you look at history, your enrollment has gone down some, but you also get a percentage increase in the revenue per student in the education fund. So is that going to go up or going to go down? And we put an assumption in there, in fact, which was a small increase. I'd have to look it up. Oh yeah, absolutely it will.
The numbers on this slide should be reflected.
And we have, I guess, perhaps made a more optimistic assumption than you're speaking to, which because as I said, you have less students, but you're also getting more money per student, or at least that has been the historical pattern. So
Right, it's gone up again,
Yeah.
2% this year.
yeah, so
Every other year.
yeah, it seems like it goes up every other year. So is that what's going to happen? Is that going to offset enrollment declines? And
I guess we could assume that if we assume the 2% per year increase in
That-
revenue per student.
Yeah.
And then look at what the percentage of the number of students average per year drop and see how.
Yeah. Right, and all of that, just to be clear, what you've said, all of that, we're talking about the education fund revenue, but
15%.
but it's that 15% that gets transferred, and we've made the assumption that you're going to transfer the maximum 15% every year. So, yeah. Take it away.
So we wanted to put together a kind of a timeline of an action plan. So I called Dennis Stockdale, that's helping with our facility study, and I'm trying to see if we can move that up. It was supposed to be done September, October. I would like to see if we can get it done by August, because I think that tells us a lot. You already know the capacity of our schools, how many empty seats. What you need to know is what it's going to cost to bring these schools up to date with facilities, because we've been neutral pretty much of keeping the tax rate the same. Well, if you don't increase the tax rate, here's how much money you can bond for to fix the schools, because $1 million doesn't fix anything that we have in the operations fund. So once you have the facility study, then you're going to be able to see what it's going to cost to fix each one of these buildings. Then we have to put a prioritize which ones we're going to fund to fix and which ones we will Band-Aid or what we're going to do. In this process, we got to figure out how we're going to cut at least $1.4 million over the next 3 years, a plan. You can go a couple years of doing nothing, and then it comes to you. I don't advise doing that. I think we should have a plan. We know what's coming down the road, that we're going to have to get $1.4 million out of this budget that we were used to, and how we're going to deal with it. I think each one of you are very responsible and want to do what's right for the school over the next 5 to 8 years. So if we get the plan done in January, it's fine. If it's February or March, it's not going to kill us. I just said it'd be nice to have some type of action plan in January. But if it has to go February, March, we have the time. I think the community's going to have to get involved in part of this, because once you see the facility study, maybe the community will want to raise their taxes for their buildings. That's not the norm in most communities. They want the tax rate not to raise. I can't answer the question of that, but I think we need to have a timeline to do something to guide me what we need to do down the road. So is there any questions? A lot of material here to look at. I wish,
Timeline's supposed to be,
oh, you don't have it?
It's the last slide. It's the last slide.
Oh. I'll make sure you get it.
If-
So- You don't have it, Mr. King?
between the chart and the question slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make sure you get the timeline.
Yeah, I know.
Anybody have any questions? And Dr. Gabriel is going to stay a little bit as we go through, because we know we're cleaning these item lines tonight, so through actions that you have to do in the board packet, so.
I think it's the budget, rating 68, I'm sure we find it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
We- The neat thing is we will have exact numbers that are correct, so.
Time and second, as far as personal information, find out about
Are there any other, Justin, I want to make sure you get an opportunity. Do you have any questions or discussion? And we got to hold on just a second. He's going to turn your volume up. It's not you, it's us. Hold on. Okay, now.
The main question I have so far is all these projections. Are they, what would that cost to change if the state legislature could change, or if there was enough outcry, correct? I mean, this is not,
Yeah.
this is not set in stone as far as, where is it? This is the law that's going to be going forward for how many years?
They do
Could
that
that law-
budget, every other year is the budget year, so it'll be 2 years before it changes.
Okay, but could that law be changed in the meantime?
In 2 years it could, right?
Yeah.
So that would affect.
Okay.
Fortunately, 2 years were not as bad, so by the time we hit, they could change, but they meet every year, and it's every other year they actually do the budget, and they'll do more laws. but
Right.
It's not a budget year. And our ADM per student went up, which is good. Just a couple percent.
So there is some positives. First of all, your education fund is helping. We're going to give raises. We can't talk about that because it has to be negotiated with the association. So that's a positive. Secondly, you have debt capacity. North Florence pays their debt off quickly. You must not like interest here. So we pay, most schools go 20 years. Your debt's not out 20 years. So there is great hope that you can bond to fix some of your buildings as we keep moving along, which you've been doing the past 2 years. Next, I really do believe academically we've shown some great improvement. That's been embargoed. I can't go over that. Do we have some buildings that still need a lot of improvement? Yes. But I can tell you I was very happy with a lot of our improvement academically. I'll know more by October 1st. So there's a lot of positives. It's just one fund that the state decided to reduce. Now you will know that our school corporation to the north has already made cuts, drastic cuts. So we are blessed. We have a little bit of time before we have to do something drastic. But I don't think it's wise for the corporation. We wait out 2 years and then have a drastic cut. I think we need to be very bright over the next 3 years of what we're doing. where we don't have to be radical on what we have to cut all at once. So that's the positive part of it. Well, David, that'll be the end of the we have some
Yeah. Any further discussion from any board member before we close this part? Justin, is that a? Can you unmute him, David? Sorry, I think you want to say something. I don't want to. There you go.
No, I'm fine. I agree, I kind of agree with the statement that we need to do something now rather than hit the wall in 2 years. But I think the other key part of this is going to be being very transparent with the public and letting them know exactly what we're doing and why.
Yeah.
And answer the hard questions that we're going to have. Just be bluntly honest with you. I think that's going to be key to it.
And we will have these slides online that people can look to see what the projections is going to affect the district as we move along.
Any anger or angst should be, I mean, I hate to say this because I'm involved in it, but it shouldn't be directed at us. It should be directed at the state legislature. And we kind of need to make that point too.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, we will adjourn the public work session, and we'll be back at